When you look in the mirror, what do you see? The reflected image may appear familiar, but it rarely reveals the full depth of who you are. It's composed of layers of choices, beliefs, and roles you play on life's stage. Carl Jung referred to this superficial layer as the persona, a mask derived from the practices of Greek theater, where actors wore masks to portray different characters. In analytical psychology, this mask symbolizes how we present ourselves to the world, an adaptation necessary to meet society's demand. From childhood, we learn to shape the persona. When praised for behaviors deemed appropriate, such as being obedient or polite, we reinforce these qualities in our interactions with others. Similarly, we repress or hide traits that are not accepted by our environment. For instance, a child who is constantly corrected for showing anger may learn to mask their frustration, developing a calm and conciliatory persona, even while harboring internal conflict. This social adaptation has its uses. It helps build relationships, navigate challenging environments, and protect our vulnerabilities. A doctor, for example, may wear their professional persona to instill confidence in patients, even if they are dealing with personal concerns. However, the danger arises when we confuse the persona with who we truly are. When we fully identify with this mask, we risk suffocating our true self, the self, and losing touch with our deepest values and desires. In this context, the mirror reflects not just a face but also serves as a call to introspection. Who am I when no one is watching? What aspects of myself do I hide behind the mask I show to the world? This self-questioning can be uncomfortable because it reveals parts of ourselves we'd rather ignore, such as insecurities or suppressed desires. Yet Jung warns that avoiding this reflection can lead to psychological imbalance, as the mask becomes a prison rather than a tool. If you've ever wondered how to discover who you really are behind the masks you wear daily, my ebook Alchemy and Archetypes, Exploring Inner Transformation Through Jungian Psychology can be a valuable guide. It includes exercises to help uncover and integrate the deeper aspects of your psyche. Link in the comments. Consider, for example, the pressure many face on social media to maintain a flawless image. The digital persona, carefully edited and presented, can create the illusion of perfection but is often disconnected from reality. This gap between what we show and who we are can lead to feelings of anxiety, inadequacy, and loneliness. Recognizing the persona and its limitations is the first step toward living a more authentic life. It's not about abandoning it entirely but using it consciously. Just as a theatrical mask is removed at the end of each act, we too must allow ourselves moments to shed our personas and face the mirror with honesty. This process brings us closer to balancing who we are and what we show, integrating our essence with the world around us. The persona is like a crucial piece of the puzzle of socialization. It enables us to interact with others, play social roles, and adapt to the world's demands. From an early age, we are shaped by the expectations of those around us: parents, teachers, friends, and society at large. Over time, we learn to adjust our behavior to meet these expectations, creating a persona that facilitates coexistence and social acceptance. Imagine a child who is consistently praised for being polite and obedient. Naturally, they begin to reinforce these behaviors, learning that acting this way brings social rewards like affection and approval. This is the first stage of persona development, which Jung called healthy identification. Here, the persona functions as a useful tool for creating connections and fostering a sense of belonging. As we grow, however, this adaptation can become more rigid, leading to what Jung termed alienation. At this stage, the individual starts to confuse their persona with their true identity. For example, someone who has always been encouraged to be strong and independent may develop a persona that rejects any sign of vulnerability. While this mask of strength may be admired socially, it can come at an emotional cost, leaving the individual feeling unable to express weakness or ask for help when needed. This disconnect between the persona and the true self can have significant consequences. When the persona is used as a shield to hide fears and insecurities, it can lead to feelings of emptiness, inauthenticity, and even existential crises. Often, this imbalance becomes apparent only when symptoms like anxiety, dissatisfaction with life, or difficulty forming genuine relationships arise. Jung pointed out that the persona, despite its limitations, is essential for socialization. Without it, navigating the complexities of social dynamics would be impossible. However, he also warned about the danger of clinging too tightly to the mask, forgetting that it is just one part of the whole. A modern example of this can be seen on social media, where people create carefully curated personas, presenting idealized versions of themselves. This digital mask often reinforces internal disconnection, as the unrealistic expectations it generates make it difficult to live authentically. On the other hand, the flexibility of the persona is what makes it a powerful tool. When we use our mask consciously, it ceases to be a burden and becomes a bridge between ourselves and others. This means understanding that we play different roles in different contexts, but none of them should entirely define who we are. Imagine a young woman who plays distinct roles at work, with family, and among friends. She might be more assertive at the office, more affectionate at home, and more relaxed with friends. This doesn't mean she's being fake. It means she's adjusting her persona to the needs of each situation without losing sight of her essence. Ultimately, balance is key. The persona is indispensable for our social lives, but it should never become a prison. Recognizing that we are more than our masks allows us to use the persona as an instrument of adaptation rather than letting it define us. In this way, socialization can become a process of discovery and authentic expression rather than mere conformity to external norms. The persona, while a powerful tool for managing social demands, is not unchangeable. At certain moments in life, it may become unsustainable, collapsing under the weight of external or internal pressures. This phenomenon, known as the disintegration of the persona, can be triggered by events like emotional crises, drastic changes, or even a latent dissatisfaction that becomes impossible to ignore over time. When this happens, the individual feels as if the foundation upon which they built their life is crumbling, creating profound inner chaos. The disintegration of the persona is both a moment of destruction and an opportunity for reconstruction. Some people desperately try to reclaim their old mask, recreating the same persona they relied on for so long. This effort, known as negative restoration, often leads to stagnation. Imagine someone who has built their identity around a social role, like a successful professional or a devoted parent, and, upon losing that role, tries to fill the void without reflecting on what they truly want. This attempt to return to normal may bring temporary relief, but often perpetuates cycles of dissatisfaction. Other individuals may find themselves completely lost after the persona's collapse, unable to rebuild any identity. This absence of a functional persona can be even more destructive, leaving the person isolated, alienated, and unable to engage with the world. Think of someone who, after a breakup, can't see themselves beyond the relationship that ended, plunging into an existential void. Without a functional persona to mediate between the inner self and the external world, the connection to reality can be severely compromised. However, the disintegration of the persona also offers the possibility of a more conscious path. This process involves reconstruction based not on fear or nostalgia, but on a deeper understanding of who we are. When faced with courage, disintegration can transform into an opportunity to align the persona with real values, desires, and need. For instance, someone who has spent years as a relentless worker may, after a health crisis, recognize the need for balance between work and personal life, shaping a new identity that reflects this change. This journey, though ideal, is challenging. Facing the disintegration of the persona requires courage to confront the deepest and often most painful parts of the psyche. This may involve dealing with past traumas, suppressed desires, or neglected aspects of the self. Jung described this moment as a call to individuation, the process of integrating all parts of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious, to achieve a more authentic and complete identity. Those who go through this process often report a sense of rebirth. Initially, it may feel terrifying to let go of a persona that has defined them for so long. But by leaving behind what no longer reflects their truth, these individuals begin to discover a new sense of purpose and authenticity. They realize that while the persona is necessary for interacting with the world, it must remain flexible and aligned with their essence. The disintegration of the persona is not the end, but a transition. It is an invitation to abandon the masks that no longer serve us and to build a new way of relating to ourselves and others. Though painful, this process can lead to emotional and spiritual growth, allowing individuals to move closer to their true nature. Rather than viewing disintegration as failure, it is more helpful to see it as an opportunity for transformation, a gateway to a fuller, more conscious life. The persona and the shadow are two sides of the same coin, coexisting in a delicate balance within the psyche. While the persona represents the mask we wear to adapt to societal expectations, the shadow contains the aspects of ourselves we prefer to hide or ignore. These two elements constantly interact, influencing our choices, behaviors, and emotions in ways that often escape conscious awareness. Jung described the shadow as the repository of everything we consider unacceptable in ourselves, our fears, weaknesses, repressed impulses, and traits that don't align with the image we wish to project. For example, someone who adopts a persona of absolute kindness may suppress their anger and aggression, pushing these emotions into the shadow. The paradox is that the more we try to hide these aspects, the more power they gain over us. The relationship between the persona and the shadow becomes especially evident when the persona becomes rigid or excessively idealized. Imagine someone who adopts the persona of an unshakable leader, always confident and strong. This mask may conceal a shadow filled with insecurities and doubts. The more this person tries to uphold the illusion of perfection, the larger their shadow grows, manifesting during moments of stress or conflict. This might emerge as emotional outbursts, hostile remarks, or even psychosomatic issues. This process of repression doesn't occur only on an individual level. Society also plays a significant role in shaping the shadow by dictating which traits are acceptable and which are not. For example, in cultures that prioritize relentless work, people may suppress their needs for rest and leisure, relegating these to the shadow. As a result, these needs may resurface uncontrollably, leading to burnout or self-destructive behaviors. Recognizing the shadow is essential to balancing our relationship with the persona. It's not about eliminating dark aspects but integrating them consciously. Jung believed that integrating the shadow was one of the most critical steps on the path to individuation. This involves accepting that we all have flaws, negative impulses, and vulnerabilities, but that these characteristics also hold potential for growth and transformation. A practical example can illustrate this concept. Consider someone who avoids conflict at all costs, presenting themselves as calm and submissive in every situation. This peacemaker persona may hide a shadow filled with pent-up resentment and frustration. Consciously recognizing these emotions can allow this person to express their needs in a healthy way, rather than letting the shadow emerge explosively or indirectly. If you wish to explore how the shadow can become a source of strength and transformation, I invite you to check out my ebook, Alchemy and Archetype. It offers practical guidance for integrating hidden aspects of yourself and transforming your relationship with the persona. Link in the first comment. Jung also emphasized that the shadow is not solely composed of negative aspects. Often, it harbors talents, desires, and energies we repress out of fear or shame. Someone who suppresses their assertiveness, for instance, might discover that integrating it fosters renewed confidence, improving their relationships and ability to achieve goals. Integrating the shadow requires courage and honesty. It involves looking inward with compassion and admitting that the rejected parts of our psyche are also part of who we are. When we embrace our shadow, it ceases to be a destructive force and becomes an ally in the journey of self-awareness and growth. This balance, in turn, strengthens the persona, which begins to reflect a more authentic and integrated identity. The meeting between the persona and the shadow is not a battle but a dialogue. Through this dialogue, we can live more fully, acknowledging and accepting our human complexity. After all, as Jung emphasized, there is no light without shadow, and no wholeness without imperfection. The process of individuation, according to Jung, is the journey toward integrating all aspects of the psyche, both conscious and unconscious, to become who we truly are. On this path, the persona often acts as an initial obstacle. Because it is the mask we use to adapt to the world, it can limit access to the deeper parts of our essence, creating a barrier between the ego and the self. The persona is essential for our social interactions, but when we over-identify with the roles we play, we risk living a life based solely on external expectations. A clear example is an executive who defines their identity entirely through professional success. While their persona as a flawless leader helps them excel at work, it may also obscure personal desires and needs, such as seeking emotional connections or a more balanced life. Over-identification with this role makes it harder to access the self, the core of the true self. Jung used the term bad faith to describe this disconnection. Bad faith occurs when we convince ourselves that we are only the persona, denying the complexity of the psyche. This can lead to existential crises because, over time, the mask becomes suffocating, leaving the individual trapped in a life that feels superficial or empty. Individuation demands that we break through this illusion and face the challenge of peeling back the layers of the persona to explore what lies beyond it. This process, however, is not an invitation to reject the persona but to transform it. Instead of being a rigid mask, the persona can become a flexible bridge between the inner and outer world. When used consciously, it reflects who we are more authentically, rather than serving as a defense against our fears or insecurities. Individuation also involves confronting the shadow archetypes and the collective unconscious. As we move away from the masks imposed by society, we begin to integrate repressed aspects and develop a sense of wholeness. For example, someone who has repressed their creativity throughout life, believing it to be impractical or not good enough, might discover that reconnecting with this part of themselves brings renewed purpose and joy, incorporating this creative energy into their identity. Jung often compared individuation to an alchemical process, where the lead of a rigid or false persona is transformed into the gold of a truer, more integrated identity. This path is neither linear nor simple. It involves confronting illusions, facing fears, and making space for the unexpected. But the result is a sense of wholeness that transcends social roles and connects us to our deepest self. Individuation does not mean abandoning the world or rejecting social interaction. On the contrary, it enables us to live more genuinely within the world, maintaining our uniqueness while fulfilling necessary roles. When we integrate our persona with the self, our interactions with others become richer and more genuine because we act from a place of authenticity rather than conformity. Like an actor who, at the end of the play, removes their mask and returns to being themselves, Individuation invites us to accept that we are more than the roles we play. It is a continuous process, a dance between the masks we wear and the essence we carry. By shedding illusions and embracing the totality of our psyche, we move closer to a freer, fuller life aligned with who we truly are. Carl Jung developed a complex psychological model to explain how the human mind is organized and how the different elements of the psyche interact. This model consists of three main levels: the conscious, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. Each of these levels plays a crucial role in shaping our identity, with the persona occupying an intermediate position, mediating the relationship between the ego, our conscious identity, and society. The conscious level is where the ego resides, the part of the psyche that allows us to perceive and interact with the external world. It is through the ego that we make decisions and form an image of who we believe ourselves to be. However, the image we project to the world is not entirely authentic, as it is filtered through the persona. This social mask is shaped both by our choices and by cultural and social pressures, functioning as the public face we present to the world. Beneath the conscious lies the personal unconscious, which houses repressed memories, forgotten emotions, and content that, while not present in awareness, continues to influence our behaviors and thoughts. The shadow, representing the aspects of ourselves we reject or do not accept, resides at this level. Although the persona may seem like a purely conscious creation, it is also influenced by elements of the personal unconscious, reflecting our attempts to avoid the shadow and project an idealized image of ourselves. At the deepest level of the psyche lies the collective unconscious, a layer shared by all humanity. This level contains the archetypes, universal structures that shape our experiences and behaviors. The persona, while it may seem unique to each individual, is partly a reflection of the collective unconscious because it is influenced by cultural and historical archetype. For instance, the hero archetype can shape the persona of someone who constantly strives to demonstrate courage and competence, while the caregiver archetype might influence the persona of someone who assumes the role of protector or supporter. The most common illusion about the persona is believing that it is entirely individual and under our control. In reality, Jung argued that the persona is heavily influenced by collective and cultural forces, which dictate what is considered acceptable or admirable in a society. A modern example is seen on social media, where the digital persona is often shaped by global trends and the pressures of belonging, reflecting collective patterns rather than truly personal choices. As the mediator between the ego and the external world, the persona plays a vital role in the psyche. It shields us from social criticism, facilitates interactions, and helps us perform different roles in various contexts. However, its connection to the collective unconscious also makes it limited and often rigid. When we over-identify with the persona, we risk losing our individuality and becoming prisoners of external expectations. Jung emphasized that to achieve psychological balance, it is necessary to recognize the relationship between the persona, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. This recognition allows us to understand that the persona is only one part of the whole and that a fulfilling life requires exploring the deeper layers of the psyche. By freeing ourselves from excessive identification with the social mask, we can integrate the most authentic aspects of our personality and live in alignment with our true self. Jung's psychic model is not merely a theoretical structure but a practical guide to understanding the complexity of our mind. It invites us to look beyond the surface, recognizing that we are much more than the persona we present to the world. This deep dive into the layers of the psyche enables us to find a balance between who we are internally and what we show externally, harmonizing the ego, the persona, and the unconscious into an integrated whole. In the modern world, the persona takes on an even more complex and challenging role. We live in a time when the demands for social adaptation and projection are amplified by digital technologies, especially social media. If, in the past, the persona was primarily shaped by direct interactions and local expectations, today it is influenced by a vast array of global stimuli and a culture of constant comparison. On social media, we create carefully curated digital personas to project an image we believe is more acceptable or admired. Each post, photo, or comment serves as a piece of this public mask, which often diverges from the reality of the authentic self. For example, someone might post photos of vacations, happy moments, and professional achievements while concealing difficulties, insecurities, or frustrations. This discrepancy between the life presented and the life lived can create a sense of internal disconnection, exacerbating issues such as anxiety, depression, and low self-esteem. The pressure to maintain a perfect persona in the digital world also reflects a collective dynamic. It is not merely a matter of individual choices but of cultural norms that value success, constant happiness, and aesthetic perfection. These values, amplified by the media and social platforms, place enormous weight on individuals, making many feel inadequate or insufficient. Another effect of modern society on the persona is the speed with which it must adapt to different contexts. In a single day, a person might shift between several personas: the professional persona at work, the relaxed persona with friends, and the loving persona at home. While this multiplicity can be functional, when taken to an extreme, it can lead to a sense of fragmentation. The individual might wonder, who am I really beyond these roles? Moreover, the culture of performance in modern society often pushes people to conflate productivity and external validation with personal worth. This dynamic strengthens identification with the persona while suppressing contact with the deeper aspects of the self. Jung warned of the dangers of this disconnection, as excessive reliance on the persona can lead to alienation from the true self and the expansion of the shadow, which contains everything repressed in the name of social adaptation. Despite the challenges imposed by modern society, it is possible to use the persona consciously and in balance. This requires a deliberate effort to differentiate what we show to the world from who we are at our core. For example, on social media, we can reflect on what we are posting and why. Are we seeking external validation, or are we expressing something aligned with our true values and feelings? This type of questioning helps prevent the digital persona from becoming a trap of self-denial. Recognizing the limits of the persona is crucial for a more authentic life. It's not about abandoning it, but using it as a flexible tool that connects us to the world without imprisoning us. Instead of creating a perfect persona, we can aim for a mask that is true enough to reflect our essence but adaptable enough to navigate the demands of modern society. Jung believed that genuine happiness comes from the balance between the internal and external world. In modern society, achieving this balance requires courage to question imposed expectations and a willingness to explore who we truly are beyond the masks we wear. When we integrate the persona consciously, it ceases to be a burden and becomes a bridge to a richer, more connected, and meaningful life. Living solely through the persona is like inhabiting a house made of mirrors. Everything we see reflects others' expectations, but nothing reveals our true essence. Carl Jung warned of the dangers of fully identifying with the social mask, as it limits personal growth and distances us from the process of individuation. When we mistake the persona for who we truly are, we create an internal disconnection that can lead to emotional crises, dissatisfaction, and existential emptiness. By definition, the persona is a construct. It is shaped to meet the demands of the external world, allowing us to adapt to social roles and connect with others. However, this adaptation can become a prison when we ignore the deeper, more authentic parts of our psyche. For example, someone who builds a persona of success may spend years chasing external achievements, accumulating material wealth and status, but eventually feels empty because these accomplishments do not reflect their emotional or spiritual needs. This dissonance often becomes apparent during moments of crisis, such as major life changes or unexpected events that destabilize the persona. Imagine someone who has built their identity around being a perfect provider. If this persona is challenged by job loss or retirement, the individual may face a profound crisis, unsure of who they are beyond this role. Another danger of living solely through the persona is the unchecked growth of the shadow. By repressing aspects of themselves to conform to external expectations, the shadow becomes denser and more powerful, influencing behavior in unconscious ways. This might manifest as emotional outbursts, self-destructive behaviors, or a persistent sense of dissatisfaction. Jung believed that prolonged repression of the shadow not only stifles psychological growth, but can also lead to mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Living exclusively through the persona also diminishes the capacity for genuine connections. Relationships based solely on the social mask tend to be shallow, as vulnerability and authenticity, key ingredients for deep bonds, are left aside. This can result in a feeling of isolation, even when surrounded by others. Despite these risks, the persona itself is not the problem. It is a necessary tool for navigating society but must be used consciously. Jung described genuine happiness as arising from the balance between the internal and external world. This means recognizing the persona as a part of who we are without letting it entirely define us. To avoid the pitfalls of living exclusively through the persona, it's essential to cultivate moments of introspection and authenticity. Practices such as journaling, meditation, or honest conversations with trusted individuals can help us identify when we are straying from our true self. Asking questions like, "Does this choice reflect who I truly am or merely what others expect of me?" is a vital step toward reconnecting the persona with the self. Jung reminds us that living solely through the persona is like staying on the surface of a vast ocean. True fulfillment lies in diving into the depths of the psyche, exploring and integrating all parts of ourselves. By balancing the demands of the external world with our internal truths, we can achieve a richer, more meaningful life. Recognizing the persona as a social mask and understanding its limits is the first step toward awareness. Jung emphasized that the goal is not to reject the persona but to consciously integrate it into the process of individuation. This requires embarking on a journey of self-discovery, confronting not only the masks we wear but also the parts of ourselves we avoid facing. The starting point is self-observation. Asking questions like, "What roles am I playing right now?" or "Does this action reflect who I am or what others expect of me?" can help distinguish the persona from the true self. Moments of introspection, such as journaling, meditating, or reflecting on daily events, are effective ways to start identifying the masks we wear and the motivations behind them. Another important path is cultivating authenticity in our interactions. This doesn't mean completely abandoning social masks, but using them consciously and flexibly. For example, in professional settings, adopting a more formal persona might be necessary, but it shouldn't prevent us from expressing our values and beliefs genuinely. Awareness begins when we use the persona as a tool rather than a cage. The relationship with the shadow is also central to this process. By observing our emotional reactions, especially those that are disproportionate, we can uncover clues about the aspects of ourselves that are being repressed. For instance, if we feel irritated or uncomfortable with someone else's behavior, it might indicate a projection of our shadow. Confronting these reactions with honesty and openness is a crucial step toward integrating the rejected parts of our psyche. Dreams are another powerful ally on the path to awareness. Jung believed that dreams reveal unconscious aspects of the psyche, often represented by symbols or characters that mirror parts of ourselves. Paying attention to dreams and reflecting on their meanings can provide valuable insights into the relationship between the persona, the shadow, and the self. Seeking professional help can also be incredibly valuable. A therapist familiar with Jung's ideas can guide us through this process, helping to identify unconscious patterns and navigate the challenges that arise along the way. Therapy offers a safe space to explore the deeper layers of the psyche and strengthen the connection between the internal and external world. Finally, awareness requires courage and patience. It is a continuous journey, one in which we learn to accept and integrate all parts of who we are. By recognizing the masks we wear, confronting our shadow, and cultivating moments of authenticity, we begin to live in greater alignment with our essence. As Jung famously stated, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. By illuminating the hidden parts of ourselves, we free ourselves from the illusions of the persona and connect with our true selves, discovering a more fulfilling and authentic life. If you're ready to illuminate the hidden parts of your psyche and unlock your full potential, my ebook Alchemy and Archetypes can be the next step on your journey. It combines Jung's teachings with practical exercises to help you turn theory into action. If you enjoyed this content, stay with me for the next video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a like.